was the 4th of January 2012. My friend let me have his copy of Pokemon Black. My friend had a tendency of selling his consoles, but keeping the games, by evidently still owning Super Street Fighter 4, though he hasn't had an Xbox 360 since a year ago. The same applied for Black. He recently sold his DSi to GameStop to make some money for the longboard he wanted. Of course, when I asked him if he was willing to give it to me for free, he hesitated but agreed as long as I would find a way to transfer out his Pokemon. I had a friend who would help me trade out Pokemon, but he was in Oregon for the holidays, so he had to leave all his stuff at home. Over the next few days, I had the game in my dresser drawer, waiting for a friend to get back from his vacation. Until then, I thought to myself, I guess I can start a new game just as long as I don't save. My starter, of course, had to be Oshawott, and I nicknamed him Chip. In every Pokemon game I've played since Crystal, I've come up with 2 rules. Rule 1, the first 6 Pokemon I catch would stay with me until I beat the Elite Four. Rule 2, I also couldn't catch any more after I caught these 6 until after the Elite Four. Because of these rules, I usually refrain from catching any Pokemon until later. I didn't catch my second Pokemon until I reached Nacron City. It was a female Blitzel. I finally made it to Pinwheel Forest and managed to beat Team Plasma's Blitzel alone, which was good because she needed some training. After events with Team Plasma, I decided to remain in the forest before venturing onto the next town, because I had the habit of leveling up my team to the next nearest 10, mostly because I loved having the upper hand in the next gym battle. While there, I also thought of having to look around for any items that could be useful. While walking around, I encountered a patch of rustling grass. Being my first time seeing one, I didn't know what to expect, and overall unfamiliar with this generation, and the only information I knew about it being related to N. But I decided to go for it. The patch of grass began to move away from me, and I immediately thought, I had to chase after it? Well, it certainly makes catching Pokemon interesting, I guess. I followed it for a minute when I realized I don't really think this is worth it, so I began to walk back. As I began my walk back the path, I noticed I was in a familiar part of the forest. It didn't concern me much since I was thinking I could probably find more items this way. That's when my game screen began to shake and large roots came out from behind the trees, blocking my path back. I thought back to a Pokemon Ranger I had battled while in pursuit of the Plasma Grunt with the Dragonite's skull, mentioning that the forest was alive. Every day something changes. So I thought, this is what he was talking about. It was a maze that would shift randomly. So I began walking to the other direction to see if I could find another way around. After walking a straight line for a while, I began to think this probably wasn't a good idea. Just then, an exclamation icon appeared above it. A character's head, and the screen panned left to a woman in a dark green ball gown, as though she had come from a fancy party. She was facing the opposite direction, and as I approached her, the exclamation icon appeared above her head. She turned around to face my character. Immediately she said, "Oh, well, if it ain't nothing but a child. Well, what are you doing this far in the woods, sugar? Not trying to scare anyone, I hope." She waited for my character to respond. When he didn't, she continued to talk. "Well, not much of a talker, are ya? Well, you should come with me anyway. We'll see if we can't do something about your predicament." she began to lead my character west into a town called Pinwheel Village. I hadn't noticed it on the town map the latest time I checked, and the music was a blues-influenced version of Route 1 from the original Pokemon game. She continued to lead my character through the town, which was rural style. Almost all the houses were made of wood and old-fashioned, the only exception being the stone cottage at the entrance. As we walked, she began to speak. Pinwheel Village is an old town and was built on a swamp. My family has owned these fertile lands for generations. We also don't get many visitors around here, so I apologize if I seemed to startled by y'all earlier. We finally stopped in front of a building and had a small sign in front which I could not read because it was written in the universal gibberish for international cartoons. My first assumption was that this was some type of herbal shop. The woman said, "This here is our town's Pokemon Center. Feel free to heal up your Pokemon. Then when you're done, come by my mansion and take on my gym challenge. I'll be waiting for y'all, so don't keep me waiting." She then walked north of the screen. Immediately I pulled out my town map and checked where I was, and sure enough, I was in Pinwheel Village, just west of Pinwheel Forest, before reaching the coast. I then made my way into the Pokemon Center, but everything in there was totally different from compared to the last Pokemon Center I was in. First off, there was no upstairs for communicating with other players, no PC, and no Pokemart. It was cramped looking in there, but the nurse at the end of the hall, along with what appeared to be a small pinkish Pokemon. I remind you, I know nothing of this game's generation, so I still don't know certain Pokemon names. We're the only ones in there. I approached the desk and talked to the nurse. Instead of a regular greeting, she simply said, "Welcome! Y'all look tired. Why don't y'all have a quick lie down?" When my screen came to, I exited and made my way to the gym. I noticed that all the houses were locked and the only person out was standing facing his purloin. When I pressed A on him, he said, "They are busy playing. Maybe it's best we don't disturb them." At first, I saw nothing but fenced-in wheat on both left and right sides of my screen. The walkway was about 3 spaces wide, and I had passed by an open gate earlier, so I assumed I had entered the plantation. Upon approaching the gym, the camera began to move behind my character, as if I were walking right behind him. So I saw the mansion in total detail. The first thing I noticed was it was a huge mansion. Next, I noticed a large amount of vegetation growing on it, which included vines, roots, similar to those blocking my path earlier, and an extremely large tree busting out of the roof of the complex. Multiple branches poked out of the windows and balconies. I know from that view that this was going to be a grass gym, and since I had no fire types, the best option was using Blitzel, seeing as Chip, who was a duet now, was the water type. I thought she stood a better chance. Entering the gym, I was greeted by the music of any normal gym, but the man near the statue who was supposed to give me advice was not there. This was strange, but I thought nothing of it since I didn't really need any advice for this gym. As I looked around the rest of the room, I noticed a building on the inside looked just as destroyed as the one on the outside. Roots were digging into the floor, vines were spreading on the walls, and shrubs grew cracks in the walls. As I walked forward, the floor was covered in the same roots as earlier. And just as I was about to take my first step onto them, the screen began to shake, and they opened up, leaving a giant gap hole in the floor. It said stairs. A trainer climbed up and said, "Well, it's been a while since we had a challenge. I promise to make it worth the trip." When the battle sequence started, the trainer sprite looked like a mature version of the male character from Sinnoh when he wears his tuxedo. His trainer class was a ballroom dancer, Stanley. The trainer had a Deerling and a Pansage, which were both taken out by Blitzel's stomp attack. After the battle, the trainer says, "If you want to get our gym leader, you're gonna have to battle all of us in the ballroom. Everyone you beat one of us, a new root at the end of the room grows out, extending the bridge a little more." Just as they finished the sentence, the screen panned north and began to shake. I saw a root come up, pouching at the bottom bit of the gap in the floor at the end of the room. Seeing as the opponents were very tough, I decided that the next battle I would use Tito to gain some experience. The next set of roots came up just as last time the screen shook. Her roots moved, revealing another trainer. This time it was a young female dressed in a yellow ball gown. "May I have this next dance?" Her name was Ballroom Dancer Jessica. The sprite was a young brunette around the age of 10 or 11 in a big yellow dress. She had both a Deerling and a Snivy around level 16. As before, her Pokemon were fairly weak, so it was an easy experience for Chip. But now Chip was level 20 and Blitzel was level 17. The battle ended and she ends with, "Was I being polite?" The bridge grew a bit more. Now, what I expected to be final trainer was left, seeing as the bridge had one route remaining. I approached the next set of roots. As before, the screen shook, roots spread only this time revealing a pair of trainers, a male and a female. The man wore a dark green vest, and the woman wore a black dress. The text then appeared, "Jack, we are the best dancers in this room, so don't expect us to let up easily. Diane, to get to Samantha, you'll have to do better than that." The battle started. The sprites were very dark, almost Hispanic. Both were dark-haired and were making that classic tango pose, with both hands together pointed to the character. "Tango couple Jack and Diane would like to battle," the text box said. They had 3 Pokemon instead of normal 2 that the other trainers had. The first 2 were Sim Sage and Maracus. I hadn't seen Maracus yet, so I was a bit excited about it. But not as excited as I was going to be when I found out what was next. They were hit by my Chip's razor shell and Blitzel's stomp, but of course the Sim Sage survived the stomp without even a dent. Maracus had gone down in one hit. The next Pokemon to appear was a Pokemon called Hollow Seed, which I'd never heard of. Its cry was the sound of rustling leaves and 2 wooden objects hitting one another. It looked like a walnut, halfway pried open enough to reveal 2 red eyes, similar to Gabuto, and a dark hollow space inside the shell. In the animation, it rocked back and forth for a bit, stopped, and the eyes moved left and right inside the shell as though looking around. Then the animation repeated itself. Assuming it was just a Pokemon I would encounter later in the wild, I attacked. This time I used Stomp on Hollow Seed and Razor Shell on Sim Sage. Sim Sage went down with no problem, but the Hollow Seed didn't take a hit. It had no effect, so it must have been a ghost type. I thought it was a ghost grass Pokemon? That was the first. At least it's something new, right? The Pokemon then attacked with Bullet Seed. Next turn I KO'd it with Razor Shell before it could attack again. The match ended and the text box appeared. Jack, it takes 2 to tango, doesn't it, Diane? Yet, you still beat us by yourself. The final route then shot out of the wall, completing the bridge, allowing me to cross over to the gym leader. She was standing at the base of the tall tree's shadow, with a beam of sunlight, almost like a spotlight, casting out from between the sleeves on the colossal branches. I approached the gym leader and pressed A. "You know, I will realize I never properly introduced myself. I'm Samantha, the owner of this plantation, and what do they call you?" "Santi? Now that's a mighty powerful name. Well now, child, y'all keep me waiting long enough. It's my turn to dance with y'all, so don't hold anything back and give it all you got." Samantha's battle sprite had much more elegance than that of her overworld sprite. She was blonde and wore her hair in a bun with the white and purple flowers on the sides of her head, with 2 streaks of hair running down both sides of her face. She had a beauty mark on her left cheek and had light green eyes. She wore long gloves going halfway up her biceps. Her dress sleeveless and starting from the top of her neck and slim fit until the waist. There it spread out into a beautiful cascading green and yellow, dotted with light green flowers, thickening into the light green mist toward the bottom of the dress. Her first Pokemon was a hollow seed. Mine was Chip. At first my attacker chose Razor's Shell. I took care of her Pokemon without hesitation. Next Pokemon was another hollow seed, so I decided to use Blitzel this time because she lacked experience. For this attack I couldn't use Stomp, so I decided to use Charge, and the attack was Shockwave. Hollow Seed used Vine Whip, which took out a quarter of Blitzel's health. The next time I attacked and KO'd it. Blitzel leveled up to 18, learning the move Flame Charge, which was perfect for the situation I was in. The next Pokemon was called Swamp Press. The cry almost the same as Hollow Seeds, except the rustling was replaced with more scraping sound, and the wood taps were replaced by a small drum beat, like a heartbeat. When I first saw it, the attributes that stood out most were the same red eyes as Hollow Seed, of course giving me the idea that this was an evolution. They were at the base of the tree, in the shadow of the thickening white roots, which were spiraling upwards, merged into a solid trunk of a tree. For its animation, it would grow a few inches, appearing to bounce, but then swing back to its original height. I used Blitzel's Flame Charge, got it almost down to 0 health. Swampert then used Ingrain, but didn't help seeing as I took out the next attack. That was Samantha's last Pokemon, or so I thought. The battle ended and disappeared. Well, that was one heck of a battle, but don't y'all think it's over. I just getting started. It's time to introduce you to my strongest Pokemon. As she said that, the music intensified and the whole gym began to shake. Roots began to detach from their places in the gym and back through the holes in the ground. Shrubs sank into the walls. As the gym continued to shake and text box here. Seeing y'all this far out in the forest made me suspect something about y'all, but I didn't expect y'all to be the strongest challenger to step foot in this gym. I can't let my family's legacy die, so with great angst I must ask you for a rematch, and I won't take no for an answer. The shaking began to intensify, and the tree in the background suddenly had a little red orb moving about within its hollow frame, appearing occasionally in the dark gaping hole in the bark. I immediately knew it was the final evolution of Hollow Seed. It then began to rise out of the ground, revealing 2 more red eyes in the shadows of its roots. A battle then started, but the sound was much more intense, as if fighting a legendary. Samantha rolled in, saying, "Alright, now it's time to show me what you got." She then faded into the background, and the monstrous Pokemon rose from the ground. The only eye visible was the one moving inside the dark brown bark. The 2 eyes I saw earlier were buried into the ground. The sound it made was that of a tree after being cut falling, snapping branches and landing with a loud thud. The screen only fit in everything below the branches. Maybe it referenced how tall it was. My character then threw out 2 Pokeballs, but Blitzel and Chip came out. Of course, I thought that was strange. I'm only going against 1 Pokemon, so why would I need both at the same time? It was when the status bar finally slid into view, realized why. The Pokemon's name was Eternity. But that wasn't all. Its level was 40, and compared to my team level, it was a little bit high. Making it really high. The strongest Pokemon I had was level 20. I didn't stand a chance. In its animation, it would just sit quietly with eye moving about uncoordinated if it was looking around for something. Then suddenly the tree would tilt back, and 3 eyes, including the now revealed ones hidden in a tangled mess of roots, would all focus on my screen as if looking at me. Then it would repeat. Eternity in first. Ease moved sunny day. I immediately knew what it was trying to do. It was preparing for a solar beam. Electra attacked with flame charge, but barely did anything. Tito used Razor Shell, which didn't do much either. At least lowered its defenses. I had better luck this time around, though. It tried using Shadow Ball, but it missed. I then attacked with Flame Charge and Razor Shell again, reducing its health a little bit less than half. Next round, my luck ran out because it used Shadow Ball on Blitz and KO'd her. I was down to just Chip, and I knew I was screwed, but luckily Razor Shell's effect had now taken their toll and lowered its defenses enough, so I was somewhere in the 3rd quarter of its health. Next round, Eternity was now using Ingrain, as I was done for the next turn, but just as I thought it was over, Chip landed a critical hit on Eternity and I won the match. In the text box after the match, the text read ... The next scene after the battle, instead of fading into the overworld, was a close-up of Samantha. She looked down with a shadow covering her eyes, with tears running down her face. The Eternity was in the background, but back to its dormant state like before the battle. It appears as straight out of the anime, only much more detailed. Samantha looked up with tears still running out of her face. She is smiling. As soon as the text box appeared, this song, Sad Song from the original Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game, played. It sounded different. It was softer and sadder and slightly more orchestrated. She then said, "So, I get it now. Not everyone can be the strongest. I think I've known that for some time now, but I was too ashamed to admit it." She then closed her eyes, and her grin grew larger and looking cheery. "Samantha, thank you. If it wasn't for you and your Pokemon, I wouldn't have realized that. I owe you an apology. I had a bit of an outburst, and I hope you would forgive me." A yes or no option appeared, and I chose yes. "Oh, you don't know how much that means to me. I could give you a badge for all your hard work, but I honestly don't have one. So instead, I'll leave you with something to remember me by. You'll find it upstairs in my room." Her expression changed to her looking away at her left shoulder. Her smile turned into a slight smirk. "So I guess this is goodbye then. I wish I could say we meet again." Then looked back down from the beginning. "Santy, when you think it's all over, never lose sight of the ones you love." And with that, she slowly faded into white and began to drift away, as if she were made of white petals and the gentle breeze was blowing her away. Now visible and still dormant, Eternity began to sink into the ground. It unraveled into millions of vines and stopped in a stop-motion style. It slowly slipped into the ground, allowing sunlight into a now empty mansion. Wow, I thought, shocked and speechless. Game Freak really went all out on this game. That was just awesome! I was now looking over at the gym, which seemed decayed as if it had been years since anyone had been there. It had shifted into a darkish brown as if the building had life drained out of it. The music began to fade, like it would stop, but instead it continued faintly. I made my way towards the doorway on the other side of the gaping hole left behind by the Eternity. I found myself in a dark room, as if it had been inside a cave. The only form of light were Again, the beams of sunlight squeezing through the holes in the roof. I was to bed and thought I could let my Pokemon while I'm here. Arjun pressed A, expecting to take a nap, and said, "A text box appeared. There's a notebook on the bed. Would you like to read it?" I chose yes. The music increased in volume, and another text box appeared. November 6th, 1861. It has been 8 months since I've seen my father. He has enlisted in the army to fight the Civil War. I've seen those beasts go at each other for months now. The black and white dragon, shrouded in cloud. I told my mother about it, but when she looked up, they were gone. As I was getting ready for bed, I could hear them crying out they were no longer wanting to fight. June 11th, 1862. We haven't received a letter from my father in weeks. Mother waits for him every day. Outside on the bench under a tree, they would spend their time together. As for my brother, he hasn't spoken to anyone since my father left. I haven't seen that black and white dragon since May, but I could still hear them at night. I asked my mother. She said that it was nothing, just the wind. Until my father could return home and the war and the bloodshed stopped. Until those beasts stopped fighting, I won't give up. As long as I carry his burning spirit. December 20th, 1862. He decided we just received the news. My mother has locked herself in her room since the letters arrived. As for my brother, nobody has heard from him since that night he disappeared. When the black dragon flew over our village, nobody saw it but me, trying to prove it is pointless. As for me, I'll carry the legacy on my shoulders until my brother finds his way home. July 20th, 1864. My father's birthday is exactly a month. We're having a ball in his honor. Everyone will be there, even Jack and Diane, my father's closest friends. Seeing them dance is always the best. With all this, maybe I'll finally get to see my mother smile again. August 1st, 1864. I saw a Pokemon today, but something about this one was odd, as if it didn't belong here. It looked like it had come from a distant land. It had short, white fur. It was on 4 legs, the body of a hound, and a black tail, and a black horn looked like a scythe on the right side of its head. It then directed its gaze on my direction. It had a dark humanoid face and 2 red shimmering eyes. I felt a warm sensation on my cheeks as a near campfire or in front of an oven. The Pokemon directed itself towards the forest and ran off. It looked into my eyes almost as if trying to tell me something. August 15th, 1864. 5 days until the ball. This morning I woke to the sound of a Pokemon in the yard. When I went outside, I saw a quick figure dash around the side of my house. As I turned around the corner, it was gone. However, as I returned to the door, at the foot of the steps, I found an egg. I didn't see a nest or another Pokemon around, so I decided to take it inside, at least until its mother returns. I will make a temporary nest until then. August 20th, 1864. The ball is tonight at 8 o'clock, so it's about an hour. This morning, while out in the fields, I saw 3 Pokemon again. Only their appearance in comparison to the last were completely different. They all moved on 4 legs. One was thick brown and strong looking. Another was swift, green, and made no sound as if galloping about. The third was blue and stood upright. It was such a presence, dominant figure among the group. It looked at me, and I was overcome with a presence so familiar. I felt a sudden tear run down my face. It then turned and disappeared among the trees with the others. They were heading east towards the forest. I thought I saw smoke in the distance. No one told me not to worry. Well, I must finish getting ready for the ball. We're supposed to be expecting a very important guest. The book ended there. I then wandered about the room looking for anything else of significance. I ended up finding a notch behind the bookcase. My character, after pressing A, reached behind the bookcase and found an egg. wasted my party. After this, I made my way out of the mansion. Everything was burnt down and didn't look like it did before. I never saw anyone on the way out. The music stopped and never returned. It was just silence. The whole time except for the sound of my character bumping into things. The field was nothing but dry soil. The wooden houses were piles of charcoal, and the stone houses were nothing but moss-covered rocks. On my way back to the path, nothing made sound. It was all quiet until I made back to the familiar path leading to Castelia City. The music began to play again. Now I wish I could say I still have the egg and that it hatched from something marvelous. I wish I could say that. Sadly, since I had no idea what I'd come upon the next day, it was too late. Therefore, I turned off the DS because I had grown bored of it at the time. I assumed I would just replay it again after my friends swapped out Pokemon. I was having a conversation with my friend about the game about it. I asked him, "So, do you have any idea what's inside the egg the one chick gives you?" My friend says, "What egg?" "The one egg you get from Pinwheel Village after you defeat the grass gym." "What are you talking about?" "The grass gym after you beat the chick who has all those grass ghost Pokemon." "There aren't any grass ghost Pokemon." "What about Eternity and Hollow Seed?" "What the hell are those?" "The grass ghost Pokemon." "They don't even sound like Pokemon, man." I ended up explaining the whole story to him, but he didn't believe me. He said I was full of crap. This whole time I was playing this game, I was like Game Freak had just hit another jackpot on another memorable story. As soon as I got home, I got on the game and checked the map. Sure enough, the landmark for Pinwheel Village was nowhere on the map. Even the path I took there is gone. Ever since then, I've been trying to repeat the whole thing again. That's a success. I feel like such an idiot. Whatever Samantha had in the egg was a legacy she left behind. I'm worried. I'm so sorry, Samantha.